fourth episode of 10 Cent Opinions. My name is Noah, or Aryo, pick whichever one you like, and on this week's episode we talk about sci-fi movies, and a little bit about just sci-fi stories in general. Most of the episode is actually made up of us trying to define what we mean specifically by science fiction. So, for example, Xander just says it's any story in space. I said it was a story that tries to define a specific idea through a realistic lens, and Michael says that it's a story with a focus on culture in a setting that could happen. After that, we talk a bit about what makes a good sci fi story, and surprisingly, a little bit about Elon Musk. But without further ado, here is 10 Cent Opinions. Enjoy. Welcome back to 10 Cent Opinions, Internet. On this week's episode, we're talking about sci-fi movies, and I guess sci-fi stories in general. Today we've got Xander.
Hola.
And someone you've probably never heard of, Michael.
Hello, everyone.
So, why don't we start by defining what we mean by sci-fi?
Things that don't exist.
Both fantasy
that are futuristic.
Okay.
Usually not pertaining to medieval themes or mythology.
What happens if you have like a medieval story that exists in the future?
We don't talk about cowboys versus aliens. That's banned.
That's not what I'm talking about. Like Warhammer would technically be it has knights and
It's
set in
half
the future.
fantasy and half sci-fi because you have Warhammer and then you have Warhammer 40k. Warhammer 40k is definitely sci-fi. Warhammer is Warhammer. It's fantasy.
I was talking about 40k because people call Warhammer just plain Warhammer Fantasy, and they call 40k 40k.
Yes.
All right, Michael, how would you define it? Do you have any? Would you agree with Michael? I mean, not Michael. Xander.
So, I think Michael would agree with Michael.
Yes.
Yeah. Sci-fi can, I guess what Xander said, it can be anything that isn't true, but it is in the realm of possibility.
Okay. So it's something that could happen.
Yeah, I think it has to be. Well, it doesn't have to be, but usually it's futuristic. It's, planned on.
Okay, so then, in the case of movies, right? What are some sci-fi movies that have came out of late? Like Arrival would be sci-fi because it takes the aliens and it tries to present how that interaction would go, right?
Yeah, that's right. That was a great movie. Did you see that one?
I did not, but I know you're a big fan of it.
I'm a big fan of it.
Do you have anything?
Star Wars movies would count too.
No,
I think it's a very good because it's one of those first contact thing. First contact movies, like Independence Day would also be a first contact movie. But this one was probably the best because it is realistic as to the culture, or what would happen between our two cultures when something is so different would crash into Earth like it did. Which is another thing. Sci-fi movies, I feel like, also have a lot to do with culture and the differences in culture.
That's obvious in like alien movies, and if you take something along the lines of, say, cyberpunk, you're usually looking at the difference between the lower class citizens and usually what's the word, aristocrats of the society, and they usually compare those two. But something else that sci-fi does really well is it likes to talk about alienation and isolation, and does this great in cyberpunk stories. But even in sci-fi, you have even in like other stories like Arrival, where it's focused on one character and their man. Somebody help me out
Yeah,
with this.
they're isolated in space and they feel alone, and it's one character, and they probably have some relation to the other characters.
Thank you.
Like Alien Isolation. Think about he plays Ellen Ripley's daughter. I think it's Amanda. She's like out in the middle of space, and she's all alone because everybody on her ship is pretty much dead, and then everybody who is alive, spoiler alert, ends up destroying you. Not literally, but like they betray you, you know, and it's pretty bad, and it really makes you feel like you're alone
Here's the
unless you
game.
have a room full of friends in which you don't really feel alone.
Unless everyone's not talking the whole time.
Right. Remember when we played Alien Isolation together, and your sister would not stop talking, and so we had to have everybody be quiet.
It's pretty great. But another movie that talks about isolation would be 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Gravity.
And Gravity, yeah. What was that other movie that came out?
That was that around the same time of
Interstellar. That's what
Gravity.
I was
Yeah,
thinking of. Interstellar.
Interstellar.
Yeah, that one. That one.
I've never seen Interstellar actually.
Have you all seen a Space Odyssey? I haven't seen that one.
I
No.
haven't seen that one either. Actually, no, I have seen that one, but it was a long time ago.
You guys want to watch it?
Born in 2001. Heck yeah!
Yeah, let's make a date.
Yeah, we should watch it definitely.
All right. There's also. So we're talking about what makes a good sci-fi.
Yeah, sure. Tell me in your
Well,
opinion what makes a good sci-fi.
Yeah, space lasers.
Space lasers, okay.
Yeah, you have to have some form of weaponry because it's not a cool sci-fi if you don't have guns. Like, let's be real. Name one cool sci-fi that doesn't have guns.
We just said Space Odyssey.
Shut up.
19...
Anyways, so
The Martian. No guns in The Martian.
But is The Martian really good?
Yes. Are you gonna
Okay.
fight me on that?
No.
All right. Okay. The first step is guns. What's the second step?
Then you gotta have aliens.
There's no aliens in The Martian.
Shut up.
There's no aliens.
I'm talking about what makes a good sci-fi, not what makes The Martian.
Are you saying The Martian's not a sci-fi or good?
Shut up.
All right. What's step 3, Xander?
Number 3 is you have to have space.
There's definitely space in The Martian.
Yeah, there you go. So The Martian makes 1 out of 3.
Yeah. Does that make it good?
Well, on top of that, you also have to have a theme, I think. Like, think about theme-wise, like you have isolation and war and trade and
Sure, but
every
that's
sci-fi
true of
movie
any
falls
story.
under a theme.
The thing
Right.
about
But
sci-fi
sci-fi
is cool.
movies have particular themes, right? That other kinds of movies really don't have. I mean, sure, there can be a movie about depression. It can have isolation, but maybe, but on Earth, you're still not truly alone.
I guess you're right in the sense that most stories outside of sci-fi usually have general themes. Not to say that they can only have general themes, but most sci-fi usually try to explain a very specific idea using realistic terms and ideas.
I think a component of sci-fi is also innovation in the sense that it's usually an original content. It has original content.
Yeah.
So things like Inception, like that was totally original.
Right. Inception is a sci-fi.
Interstellar was original in the sense of Well, I guess it wasn't a. It was.
I can't
I
help
don't
you. I've never
know.
seen the movie.
Yeah. Uh.
But that's kind of necessary for sci-fi because you're trying to take a look at this specific idea and you're doing it through a very real lens, a lens based in reality. And because you're using that lens, you're forced to think more deeply about the story than just, oh, this is a love story or this is a story about war or et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Another thing that sci-fi's, and this is a legitimate reason, is they have to have good visuals. I think
But what about in a sci-fi book? Does a sci-fi book have to have good visuals?
it has to have a nice font.
All right, explain yourself, Xander.
Well, look at there are a lot of people who really like the new Star Wars. I can't say I'm one of them, but when you ask people what they really loved about the new Star Wars movie, they all lots of them say the exact same thing: visuals. Think about Gravity. Gravity has some really good visuals and also had a very good soundtrack. Um, as well as Interstellar's soundtrack has been awarded many times. So I think you have to be really immersive if you're in a sci-fi. I mean, there's some sci-fis that are just shoot and kill, but those ones aren't really highly regarded. Like look at the Doom movie. Does anybody say the Doom movie is their favorite movie? No.
I didn't actually know Dune had a movie.
Yeah, well, it's not very good.
I
I mean, it's
see.
all right, but that the best, most highly regarded ones typically have great visuals, great soundtrack, which makes them very immersive. Also makes the audience either want to stay or leave, depends on how brave-hearted you are.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't actually call Star Wars a sci-fi because it doesn't take that realistic lens. It's definitely more of a fantasy than it is.
I see.
It doesn't ever attempt to explain what's going on.
But then again, Star Wars is also a historical series,
Why?
thus a
Because it takes
long
place in the
time
past.
ago. Yeah, but really, when you're traveling at light years for so long, what makes it in the past?
Billions of
They
years.
can travel. They can travel through space and time, and so people who are hundreds and hundreds of years old are really like 30. Just thought.
You just blew my mind. Because everybody would be at a different age then, because they're all traveling at different speeds.
Think about Han Solo. How old is Han Solo really? Like, I mean, he ages like a human, but with all the space travel he does, he could be 1 gajillion. And Chewbacca literally lasts over all three. What's the word I'm looking for? Trilogies. Thank you, Mike.
Trilogies, sure. So, last year we had a sci-fi panel, I guess you could say, right? And Michael, you could help me with, but the guy who was giving the talk explained the different types of sci-fi, the different genres, subgenres. So, what were they? They were like cyberpunk, alternate history, steampunk, hard sci-fi. Is there anything?
Yeah. I don't remember honestly.
All right. So there's at least four subgenres in it, but I've always loved cyberpunk. But there isn't a whole lot of cyberpunk stories that come out lately. Although,
There's actually, CD Projekt Red,
go
who
on.
made the Witcher series. They're working on a new game because they finished the Witcher trilogy, right? It's going to be called Cyberpunk 2077. And with how good the Witcher games are, I need to look up if they're still in development on the game if they gave up. They're a pretty persistent company though, so I wouldn't think they would. Anyways,
On a
I
side
just
note,
thought that would be really interesting.
Project Red,
Best film.
basically the what's the word I'm looking for? It's basically like Sweden's one of Sweden's cultural symbols, like their most
Yeah,
prized uh possession, so to speak. It's pretty funny.
it's a great studio though. I mean, they made good old games too.
So is Blade Runner cyberpunk?
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up, but I didn't
Yeah.
see it. Did you see it, Michael?
No, I haven't seen both. I know there's a new one. Um, I haven't seen both though.
You guys want to add that? You want to watch that one too?
Wait, which one, the old one or the new one?
Well, we watched a new one, and then we watched Space Odyssey. Let's start
Yeah.
keeping a list. Xander,
Yeah,
I know
they
you.
have a website for. Sorry to interrupt.
Hmm?
But they have a website for Cyberpunk 2077, and there's one video attached to it.
You looking at it?
Yeah, I'm watching it right now.
Hmm. I was gonna
Continue.
ask you though. You saw the new Blade Runner.
Oh yeah,
What'd you think
it's
of it?
good. It's good. So I saw the old Blade Runner too. Give me a second. Sorry, I
Okay.
had to minimize that screen. But yeah, the new Blade Runner, it's very, and actually it fits in with everything that I just said, except for aliens. But there are guns, and there's a lot of space, and it's very aesthetic. And what I mean by that is the visuals are excellent, and at least especially in the new one. In the old one, not as much. They did the best with what they could back then, but in the new one, the visuals are absolutely incredible. And then as well as the soundtrack, which I feel like to have a good sci-fi themed soundtrack, you have to have a lot of empty space, if you know what I mean. You know,
Why
you
do you
have to
think
have
that?
it has to be more quiet. You know what you know what I'm saying?
I know what
Yeah,
you're saying,
it's
but
like
I
it's
want you
like
to
You
explain
can't
yourself.
have like the Avengers soundtrack or something. But I don't actually know the
I get
Avengers
what you're
soundtrack.
saying because it's like it has to be simple, right? It has to be kind of repetitive, right?
Right. And because the whole point of a soundtrack in the movie is to lend to the theme or the idea that they're talking about. And Blade Runner is really, I mean, it's a universe full of people, but at the same time, it's really empty. What I mean by that is, everybody's just society is is very robotic, both literally and theoretically, or philosophically. Um, you know, it's like no, I'm not gonna use that comparison. That's a little bit too much, but
Xander, no one's
yes,
watching. Do it.
my mom's in the room. Okay, so I guess I can say it's like America in the 19 like in the 1950s and 60s. But instead of people of color, it's robots.
Ah,
But it's also very futuristic. But basically, all of the robots are hated and discriminated against, and not the robots. They're called something else. I'm gonna call them No, they're not
synthetics.
cyborgs. Synthetics. Yes, I'll call them that. Thank you for your addition, Michael.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's a
Oh,
good
you
point.
appreciate.
Anyways, but it's a really interesting universe in that everybody there has a job and everybody there's trying to get something done. But it's a very empty feeling world, and that it's busy, but it doesn't have a purpose. It's like a beehive. I mean, they
Interesting.
have a purpose, but their purpose is solely to survive. You know?
Yeah, strips the point of living away.
Right.
But back
All of
to go on.
Go ahead.
No,
Oh,
go on.
uh, if you insist, all of the philosophy. There are so few characters in the movie that are actually really philosophical. All those people are the freedom fighters and the resistance and the bad guy and all this. And but when you think about them, the few compared to the scale of the many, it's kind of like the real world, which is really neat.
Mm.
I know you have a little bit of a. You don't really like some of the sci-fi soundtracks that we showed you, like the time one from Inception. You didn't like it
I
really,
did not like that. No,
and then also the Interstellar one. You didn't like it.
I did like. I liked the Intercell one.
Okay,
I don't think
My,
it was. I
Noah
liked it
just
more
doesn't
than
like
the
Hans
the other
Zimmer.
one.
because they're very similar in the sense that they have the 4 chord repetitive theme.
Yeah,
And I guess that's what you didn't like about it, right? It was kind of just boring and repetitive.
yeah. I
Right,
thought
but
it was
in a
kind of.
sci-fi movie, you don't really want the soundtrack to stand out. You want the soundtrack to be kind of assist everything else.
It really depends on what story you want. So I
That's
agree
true.
because I like, for the sake of Blade Runner, it makes a lot of sense that there's a lot of empty space, and it was a really smart choice on the part of the director because not only does it reflect this idea that the world is kind of devoid of meaning in a world where you're just working to survive, but it also stands out among other soundtracks. If you sit down to a Marvel movie and you listen to the soundtrack, as long as it's not Guardians of the Galaxy, you're not going to remember the music because it's not interesting or
Right.
impactful. But
I
when
mean, the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack is unique in that it's all other songs.
yeah,
You know, they didn't hire a composer and they didn't say, hey, I mean, I bet you they did. I bet you they have a few original songs. But for the most part, they're like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna pay some royalties. That's what we're gonna do.
and it worked. I bet they paid off those royalties with plenty of interest. But having silence is almost more impactful than having music sometimes. And I've actually been trying to create like a short essay on silence in anime and like reflective scenes where not much is happening and why those are amazing. So having it in Blade Runner makes a lot of sense because it's so impactful and you're not expecting it. But in other like taking Ghost in the Shell for example, Ghost in the Shell's music is this ancient Japanese spiritual chant that's meant to get rid of bad spirits, and
Right.
it's so appalling and like in
It's
your
heavy
face
hitting
almost.
for sure.
Yeah, but it really reflects the idea of, or it fits very well with the tone of Ghost in the Shell.
It also helps the theme of having a soul,
Yeah, having
right?
a soul and an identity or
And that's
ghost.
another thing that Blade Runner has too, is that the whole time basically the main character is having this identity crisis. I think his name is K, whatever. But I guess I'm gonna call him K. I'm probably completely wrong. But K basically, in the beginning of the movie, he's just doing his job and he's punching another synthetic in the face, and he's like, "Heck yeah, I'm good at my job." But as the movie progresses, it kind of goes into what does it mean to be human? Can a machine ever be human? What does it mean to have a soul? Right? The Harrison Ford's character, we never find out if his character is a synthetic or not, right? But the whole theme of the movie is that basically he and this synthetic had a kid, right?
They
And
can
they're
do
trying to
that?
find the kid. Yeah, and that's what was so shocking. Is everybody was like, "What the heck is going on? You can't do that. That's not possible." But then, if Harrison Ford is a synthetic, it begs the question: do we really need humans? Because synthetics are so much better than humans, And then, are synthetics really alive?
Yeah.
And if you're born with a synthetic, are you alive? Because synthetics are built.
So was he actually a synthetic or was that not?
They never. I don't think they ever explicitly say.
Mm.
But that's another thing is that in Blade Runner there are so many unanswered questions. I mean, they eventually answer because here's the thing: is that Kay during the movie he actually thinks he gets a bunch of memories implanted in his head by this memory chick, right? And
Memory chick.
she has a
Nice.
special ability to create memories, and they put the memories in synthetics. No, or they strip whatever. anyways, so he had these memories of his childhood, right? Which synthetics can't have childhoods. So he was like, oh wow. And so he thought that he was really a human, and if he was both synthetic and human, and he grew up, then he had to be Harrison Ford's son. Right?
Sure.
I'm just gonna call him Harrison Ford because I can't remember the character's name. But so that's why he goes and visits Harrison Ford's characters because he thinks he was his son. Which are you gonna ever see Blade Runner? I mean, it's a good movie.
Sure. I said we're putting it on the list.
All right, then I won't spoil any further. But anyways, it's a very philosophical movie, and it's pretty good. It's long too. It's a long movie, but it's worth it in my opinion.
Well, that's something that Cyberpunk does really well is talk about identity and what it means to be alive. But I figure we can change topics now.
All right.
Something that you don't really see is true sci-fi games, like video games, obviously.
Right. Well, it's pretty difficult to get that aspect right. But I see where you're going. Alien Isolation, I guess, would be a good example of a sci-fi game.
Like, what do you mean by when you say true?
Like, you know how I was saying earlier that you take a real lens and you try to explain a very specific question about through that real lens? It's like you don't see any games that particularly do that. You see a lot of games that take place in space, though. So.
Right.
So, in short, you're kind of saying they're not very deep. You can't really think about it a
We
lot.
don't have many philosophical games in the first place. Those games are usually short, free indie games that you find on Steam, and they become like really popular for 5 minutes and then they die out.
Sure.
Like Halo is sci-fi, right?
Halo is sci-fi, but I wouldn't say it's like a true sci-fi story. I would say it's more sci-fi fantasy. Because the story of Halo could take place in the Crusades with religious Muslims, and it would still be the same story. Sci-fi is defined by the world and the length of detail that goes into the world to answer a very specific question. But
And does the question have to be philosophical?
Usually it is. I don't think it has to be. But like, I don't think that there are games that aren't philosophical. I would say Dark Souls is very philosophical, and I've talked about that before. That game company's games, so Journey and stuff, those are pretty great. Stuff like Prey is also top of the line. I haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn, but I imagine that game is on a similar level. Have you guys played that? Right. I guess neither of you have PlayStations.
No.
Nope. That's Colton's thing.
Yeah. Fucking pussy.
Traitor.
Scum.
He better run for governor, just saying.
He's not.
I'm gonna punch him.
Yeah. We'll punch him once.
Is he going to? I don't think he is. Is he?
No, he's not. He gave me this whole rant about why he wasn't gonna do it. Although he's gonna come back to this video.
Wasn't gonna do what?
About why he wasn't running for governor.
And what did he say?
Just nothing, really. But the problem is he's gonna come back to this video next week and he's gonna be like, "You motherfuckers."
We were talking about you behind your back, Colton. We know you're listening.
Yeah.
I know, Xander, you really liked just all the Alien movies, right?
Mm-hmm. I like. I know there are a lot of people who say that they don't, but I actually do like the new ones. And there are a lot of people who say that the new ones still can't compare to the first two Alien movies, which I guess is true. But if you take the new movies and compare them to all the other movies that come out, they really stand out, and I think they're actually very good.
You mean comparing them to like sci-fi of today?
Mm-hmm. Like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, I thought were both pretty good movies.
Yeah, I think they were pretty good too.
Hey,
I think they are philosophical too because there's this whole thing about it's an origin idea. There's like the two main ones, which is God and then evolution, right?
Right.
But another one that it's kind of rare, but I've seen it. It's the idea of humans are we come from just another life form, which is the whole thing about Alien. They were
Right.
they were sent and trying to find the origins of Earth. So I think in that sense, I think it's really cool because the culture. There's also a bunch of thing about like the culture in there. Like there's a scene where they go into this abandoned building and there's all these sculptures and stuff. You
Right.
see them.
They go into creators basically, and one thing that's really neat is that there's still a bunch of questions that they've yet to answer, like who created our creators then?
Yeah,
That's another question, is that if we're created by an alien race, what created that alien race?
yeah, and then that's the problem. You can just keep going with that until infinity. So it's not a very
That,
strong like origin answer, but it's still there.
it's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have I have never actually watched any of the Alien movies. What if you were to describe to somebody what the appeal of one of those movies would be? What would you say?
Well, it's weird because most people know them as horror movies, which they are.
Right,
Right.
that's what I know
Um,
them as.
yeah,
Especially Alien Covenant. That one actually got me a few good times.
it's pretty gory. Yeah. It's known for its horror. It's overlooked, I think, the sci-fi part of it.
I feel like they create a very interesting universe too.
Yeah, I think it's great, because it's not that big, but it's simple.
Right. It's kind of like if Earth split up into a bunch of different ships and societies. We're all trying to find and create the perfect society. That's basically the idea of the world, right? And
Um,
it's really neat because it also kind of goes into, should humans in the first place, should we be looking for a new world? Because kind of every time we do in that universe, everything goes terrible.
Well, our boy Elon Musk is heading towards Mars.
Elon Musk is
yeah.
driving in space.
Yeah, he's driving towards Mars.
I don't. Did you understand why he's doing it with a car? Like,
Show off.
I think they needed a counterweight for the Falcon, and he decided to use his car, one for publicity and two because he's freaking Elon Musk.
The thing about that image is that's going to be around for probably hundreds of years. I bet that
Yeah,
image is going to end up in science textbooks
oh
in the
yeah,
future.
yeah.
definitely. This dude, oh my gosh, let me talk about Elon Musk for a second. So he was bored in traffic one day, right? And he thought, hey, it'd be a good idea to drill holes underneath the ground and to make a tunnel system underneath. I think it's LA that he did that. And so he spent a bunch of money and made a tunnel system in LA. And then he started selling hats for his tunnel company in LA. And then after they sold out of hats, he's like, you know what? You know what's even better merch? Flamethrowers. And so we sold like 20,000 flamethrowers.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Really?
And then he launched a cart into space.
Good man. Good man. Yeah. Did you know? I saw this on Reddit this morning. Apparently, I think it's Iron Man 3, when they're in Italy and they're looking at the racetrack. You know what I'm talking about? Maybe it's Iron Man
Yeah.
2 with the guy with the whips.
Yeah, that's Iron Man 2, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
and they're in like the high rollers booth, and Tony Stark goes up to a guy and he goes, "Hello, Mr. Musk," and there's Elon Musk talking to him.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool. That's like an Easter egg, I guess, kind of.
yeah, I guess you could say so. And then they make a joke about an electric car, I think. Electric something.
Yeah, but Elon Musk is he's not human. Mark Zuckerberg is a lizard man, but that's of Earth. Like Elon Musk is definitely not from us.
Let's see. Why do you think sci-fi isn't as popular as other genres?
Because it makes you think. Honestly.
Yeah, I think you're right.
They don't want to go to the movies to actually like come out and like be shocked and like have to rethink their lives. They go to the movies for entertainment. People don't like to be challenged. Look at the people who executed Socrates. He challenged all of them, and they're like, we don't like that, so you're dying.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Or people,
really.
or people just don't see the value in being futurists and thinking about the future, thinking outside the box. People just don't see any value in it, I think.
Right. But that's why the best movies, the best art is able to not necessarily is able to still appeal to lots of people, but at the same time being factful and have an important message. And that's why like Hayao Miyazaki, all his movies are really cool because everybody can enjoy them because they're based on human emotions. But what he's trying to express in each one isn't some grand idea, but it's just a feeling or emotion that he wants to he wants the audience to feel, stuff like that. So I always admired him because of that. That he can take a movie and create an emotion for the viewers that they perhaps never would have felt before, and then walk away and take something away, even though the movie is still made for a large people.
Yeah.
But he's never made a sci-fi movie, so what are you gonna do?
Cry.
Probably, yeah.
All right.
Well, if you guys, what were you gonna say, Xander?
Well, I was about to say, I've said most of the things that I have to say on that topic.
All right. Well, then, if Michael, you don't have any final thoughts, I guess we could wrap up here.
No, I think it's said most of the stuff I want to say.
Thank you for your time, Michael.
Yeah, thanks
You're
for
our
joining.
special guest.
Special guest that will probably be returning soon.
Yes.
Yeah, I might be a what do they call
special guest every episode.
Yeah, whatever that is.
It's just a member of the crew.
Yes.
There's nothing special about that at all.
Hey, we're all special.
Besides the fact that he gets a special name. Michael will be our special podcast member. He's special only in the sense that it's in his title.
Right.
Yeah. All right then, internet. We will we'll see you later sometime.
Actually, not internet people, like one person. They'll probably be
one person. All right, it's us.
Appreciate that one.
No, yeah, the one person.
Future Xander.
We're gonna send you a T-shirt.
Yeah, we were send you a mug too.
Yeah, you get a mug with our faces on it and a T-shirt.
And 10 cents.
With our beautiful logo. Yeah, and 10 cents in your pocket.
Exactly.
Every time you talk about our show.
Yes, that's how it works. We owe you 10 cents for every bit of publicity.
Nice. All right. Well, see you guys.
All right.
Wait for our sequel. Grain of Salt Opinions. Coming soon.